and welcome into the latest episode of Broncos Europe podcast. I'm here once again, joined by my trusty and reliable as ever co-host, Mr. Kieran Morley. How are you doing this weekend, Kieran?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good. 2 weeks out, haven't we? That's still a big one. So edging closer.
Yeah, definitely getting closer to that first sort of important part of the off-season. The off-season is flying by. We're only about 150 days away from the season now, which I know seems quite a long way, but we're definitely getting there. Today's episode is all about the offense, and next week we're going to go do the defense. We'll flip it on its head, but we thought we'd start on the more sort of exciting part of the team, in my eyes, the one that sort of could flourish the most, improve the most. In my opinion, the defense can't really improve that much from last season, but we'll start on offense. We'll go position by position. We'll go through some stats from last year, perhaps, and we'll just see where the conversation takes us. And hopefully, some people will join us along the way, to give us their thoughts and opinions. So, just give us your opinion on sort of how you saw it play out last year, and how does it fare?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Mark, in terms of it's been a long time since we've said exciting, probably the most exciting side of the ball. And that's not because, defense isn't exciting when they're playing well. It has been that, we said last week, defense wins championships, but it's nice to see some sort of positive offensive football, isn't it? And we haven't had that for a little while. Flourishes under different quarterbacks, some big players from Russell Wilson the year before at odd times and such, but that consistency in that overall sort of offensive side of the ball was a lot better than we've seen in recent years, and like you say, one that can grow. So
I think it's been a big thing. This year is the first year we've really had in a long, long time without that stupid quarterback carousel graphic. I mean, we thought we'd got rid of that on the TV when Russell Wilson came in, but he didn't provide that stability, and it ended up biting us behind again. But we've got Bo in now, our quarterback of the future. He played well enough last year, more than well enough, really, to cement his place as QB1. I know the whole franchise is looking forward to seeing the jump from year one to year two.
You're right. I think. Oh, sorry, Matt. I was just saying you're right, and I think there was maybe some nerves, as I think we've discussed this before, but nerves going into the season is, was Sean reaching? Was that his man? And I think it's quite clear as the season went on, wasn't it? It was his man, and any sort of doubts and reservations that people had about is that the quarterback for the future of the Broncos. I think he's at this moment in time. There'll be a lot of people hedging their bets on that yes rather than the no side. There'll still be a few doubters. Those little bits in the game, but for a rookie season, it was phenomenal, really.
Yeah, definitely. And we're saying he had a really good season, and that was without weapons on that offense. I mean, you look at the running back room, we had a three-pronged attack with Javonte supposedly leading the way. He didn't have a good year. He's ultimately left the team this year. With Jaleel being that change of pace back, and then we had Audric Estime, the rookie, who hopefully will kick on this year. And then on, wide receiver, you only sort of had one big name in there, Cortland Sutton. A lot see him as a number 2 receiver in the league. I see him as number 1 in my eyes. But exactly, we had no tight end game. We had very little from lower down in the wide receiver room. So there was no real weapons for Bo Nix to sort of utilize, and he still came away with a fantastic season. So this off season was all about giving him weapons. I fully expect us to go into the draft and give him those young, explosive weapons. We'll hopefully see jumps from Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Devon Bailey, who's becoming a real solid third down guy in the league, and hopefully Cortland will become that legit number 1 over the season.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, we'll maybe touch on the wide receiver room a little bit if we go through position by position. But you're right. I think again, he's a player that did last year what I think we've been wanting as Bronco fans for a few years now. Is got back to that sort of peak, and I think he's put himself in that wide receiver 1 room again. I think that's where he's at. So yeah, brilliant season, brilliant connection with Bo, which is like you say, it makes this off season a little bit easier again, doesn't it? Because we know we're not out on the search for a full arsenal of weapons for him. We're just finding some of them bits to try and stretch some defenses and give Sean a few sort of tricks up his sleeve to and a few weapons to, stretch that playbook, make some different calls, and see if we can do what some teams have done to us for year on year. Do you know what I mean? Where we're up against some top quality offenses with varied playbooks, and it's very difficult to defend against. So hopefully we can kick on and have that in our arsenal moving forward.
Yeah, just to pair that offense with the legit defense we have, we could be a team to really push on in the playoffs this year if we make it and really mount our own Super Bowl challenge. We could be a couple of years away yet, but this year it's all about learning that and really trying to find our identity on offense. So yeah, let's start with the most obvious position on offense, the one everyone thinks about. That
tight end
position. Oh, you went tight end.
No, quarterback.
We're definitely going to go touch on tight end. It's the one I love the tight end room. I love tight end attacks, attacking game. I think it's where we've really sort of missed out in the last few years. But we'll come back to that later. We'll start on the quarterback position. We've got 3 quarterbacks in house. Where do you see us? How would you rank that? Let's rank it in the AFC West, shall we? Let's use that as our basis over how we rank each room.
Right.
Obviously, we've got QB1. We've got Jarrett Stidham sort of backing him up, really providing that consistency. They have a tight bond from last season. And we've also got QB3, Sam Erlinger, who we brought in the off-season.
No, I mean, I rate our room, Mark, I really do. And I think, like you say, there's still, that second season with Bo, if that's as good as the first or kicks up a little notch, then I think everybody's breathing that little bit easier. And I think, those on the still hedging on the fence, sitting on the fence or on the north side, are they sure that will move a lot into the, yes, he is definitely our cement as our quarterback the future. What the others have at the moment, there's just that little bit more experience, but the starting quarterbacks I'm looking at in the the other teams. But did we see the best of Patrick Mahomes last year? Is it a struggling offense? Was it he didn't have the weapons, or is it a natural decline? It's one of them. It's difficult to pinpoint it, and you can never write him off. That's the thing. Especially,
I mean, if that was a bad season, he got to the Super Bowl.
and it's mental, that, isn't it? Because the Chiefs, you look at their record last year, and I don't want to touch on them too much, but weren't convincing in games. A lot of the time, they were 1-score wins and such like that. But as champions do, they win those games and they make it count. And it is players like him who probably at times drag them over the line in some big drives and clutch plays and such. So, it's a difficult one. Would I put Bo above Justin Herbert? Again, he's a player who has shone but never had that consistency and helped the Chargers, and when they're getting to the nutty crux and playoff football and such. And then Geno Smith now. Yeah, I think maybe he's nestling us in a tight second spot there, Mark. Have I got my rose tinted goggles on?
I think I've got my orange tinted glasses on as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him as number 2 in the AFC West, just based on sort of projections and what I think he can become. Not probably where he is at the moment. You've got 4 good quarterbacks in the AFC West now. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith at the Raiders. He's not going to light it up, but he is a legit starter and will help sort of Pete Carroll do what he wants to do. I firmly believe they're going to draft a running back, probably Ashton Janty, and then run the ball. The Chargers, they're going to run the ball. That is what Jim Harbaugh is known to do. So they've got a luxury at quarterback as well. They can both throw it, but I firmly believe they're going to be running offenses, and Bo is going to be seen to throw the ball a lot more this year.
And again, I mean, why not? We saw the numbers he put up last year as a rookie as well. So is CV after year one as a NFL quarterback? Why shouldn't we be pushing him to the top of that list? Or close to the top of that list in our division. And I think, like you say, we'll continue to see Sean dialing up some nice pass players and such, and we'll see him throwing the ball a lot. But hopefully, we do add to that running back room and again have that other dimension where we're not reliant on that as much as potentially we have been.
Well, let's put it this way. Bo Nix was a missed field goal away from being 2-0 against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That says something for a rookie. He took the games by the scruff of the neck and nearly ground out 2 wins. I know one was against the backups. I'll give you that, but I hope he continues that trend and we can continue to challenge the Chiefs going forward. We'll move on to the offensive line next. You know, massive part of the offense. It's one that Denver has put massive amounts of money into over the last few years. It's probably the first year where we are having the same starting line come back and be the starting line this year. So we'll go from left to right. You've got Garrett Bowles coming in, left tackle. You've got Ben Powers, left guard. I'd probably put him down as the weakest member of the offensive line in my eyes. He didn't have a stellar year last year. He did okay. But if he's the weakest member, it's definitely not.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if this question. Yeah, I know what you're saying there about Ben, but I think Luke Wattenberg as well. There's questions as if we're going to strengthen anything. What positions are we looking at? It's not going to be anybody who's going to come and replace these guys straight away for me. It's just not. So there's faith there, and is that because we think that Ben Powers and has done well enough? And because he had a good year, and the numbers show that. I mean, Bo, he, he didn't have a lot of pressures on him because we were stellar up front, and that was just how it was. So, he's got for me. I think Luke Wattenberg, he has got time. He might have a battle on. He might have somebody coming in potentially to learn from and grow and such like that. And he might have a personal goal to make that next step and try and push on, because there could be somebody pushing, coming in, pushing behind. But again, of those 5-year starters, like you say, next year, Mark, we're laughing. For me, I think that's a great building block to start on. So
yeah, it's definitely a toss up between who's the sort of the weakest on that line of Powers and Wattenberg. But I'm happy with both as starters going forward. You've got Pro Bowler Quinn Miners. I know he turned down the Pro Bowl, but you got there. And then McGlinchey, the man mountain at right tackle. He seems to be really finding his feet on that position and protecting Bo really, really nicely. Just having the same sort of line coming back, it sort of provides that stability in the run game, which is where we've lacked in sort of previous years. And I'm hoping that if we get a full time, I'm not about this running back by committee. I think we need a legit 3-down option. And then when they are getting tired, you throw Jaleel in, or if you want to sort of quicken it up a little bit, throw the screens to them, then you bring Jaleel in. I fully expect sort of Estimate to sort of not get as many carries this year. But that might sort of improve his output anyway. It takes the pressure off him, let him learn the offense a little bit more. And I fully expect sort of a round 1 or 2 running back to come in and take the majority of the snaps this season.
You're right, and like you say, that will help. And I think it's not just having a cemented running back one, like you say, in taking that committee away. It's an improvement on who was in that committee as well as what we need, because that O-line did, we create the gaps. It was the run game. It was the players, finding the gaps at times. That was a problem. Again, there's maybe questions around where did those gaps collapse and such, and it was at Luke Wattenberg. Where was the weakness and stuff? We could look along that line, but we did create a lot of gaps there for that run game to flourish, and it didn't. So I think you're right. We'll touch on the running back room in a bit, but we'll need that strong running back one to come in and, like you say, just be a three down back and have somebody else waiting in the wings to change the pace, bring something a bit different in. But back to the O-line for me, I mean, what more could you ask for your rookie quarterback coming in, Mark? For me, I think the protection was great. It's what he needed in his rookie year. He was taking. It was one of the stats that we looked at. He was taking time to throw the ball. I think he was the 5th highest at holding onto the ball before making that throw, which just speaks volumes for what that O-line has done. And again, you'd hope that decision making gets a little bit better. He maybe releases it a little bit quicker. But if they're creating the time and you want to stretch the field and you've got players like Marvin Mims belting down there, it's nice to know he's got that. He's going to get that half a second more than others or whatever, and just to make that better decision. So brilliant. I think for me,
he was only sort of sacked. I think he was sacked 24 times last year. And throw that to the year before when it was nearing 60, maybe over 60 times with Russ behind that line, the same line pretty much. Maybe one difference there on the line, but that just shows Nix has got the sort of the legs to get out of those situations, doesn't hold on to the ball as long. He makes the quick throws when he needs to. He reads the field, but that he's given the time to do that, and the confidence to do that because of that line in front of him.
Yeah,
You know,
you're right though, and like you say, I mean, we brought in McGlinchey, we brought in Powers season before last. They were there when Russ was there. Now, arguably, they probably both had better seasons last year. Although, like you say, Ben Powers maybe didn't make that leap that McGlinchey did. I think McGlinchey was probably a lot more improved on that right side. But it just, again, it comes back to Bo there, like you said. It shows you what his mobility was like. You know, that potential to escape the pocket and you know, miss a tackle or two. And Russ did show it at times still with his old legs. There's a couple of good plays he made where he got out to the line and made a good last ditch throw. But I think we want that consistency, and I think that Bo's shown that athleticism's there. You know, some of what was his rushing, 400 and some rushing yards, nearly as much as our backs or
it's an
more.
insane output from, you know, it's something that we've not had for years.
Yeah,
And I always think a quarterback running is one of the most exciting plays, just because either the play is broken down or, you know, there is a designed run play for them and they know exactly what hole they're hitting. And Bonix is sneaky quick.
yeah,
The
he
amount of
showed
times
it, like.
I thought he was going to run in for the touchdown and just sort of came up a little bit short. But yeah, they're always exciting, the quarterback runs. But yeah, I think the O line is probably the best part of our offense at the moment. If
100%.
you had to rank it out of the AFC West, I'm putting that right at the top, number
Yeah,
one, straight
agreed.
away. Chargers too. I know Chiefs got rid of a couple of starters. Joe Tooney's gone. There was another one, I
Yeah,
can't remember who left, but you know, that I fully expect that to be a lot weaker for the Chiefs, and the Raiders will just all laugh at the Raiders O line. You know, the least said about that, the better. But yeah, number one for the offensive line in the AFC West for me.
yeah, agreed, 100%.
Yeah, we'll move on a little bit now to those sort of exciting positions, the skill positions on offense, and we'll go straight in with tight end, the one that's had probably the most amount of talk in Broncos country this off season. We obviously brought in Evan Engram, who was going to be our tight end number one. He's going to be a vertical threat. I know Bonix was the first one to reach out for him as soon as the Broncos signed him. Obviously, he spoke to the guys over at DNVR recently. I don't know if you've seen that interview on their YouTube.
I haven't yet. No, I'll have to make sure I check that one out.
Yeah, it's a definite must watch. But yeah, he was sold pretty much straight away. The Broncos were in touch within minutes of the Dolphins releasing him. Sorry, not the Dolphins, the Jags releasing him.
Yeah.
And he was sold on the vision. Sean Payton, you know, laid it out what the plans are on offense. They plan to use him in that vertical passing game, stretching the field. He thinks that's where his game excels. So I'm excited to see what Evan brings, and you know, it's nice to have a legit number one tight end in the room with no doubt about it. He's probably the best tight end we've had since Julius Thomas.
Yeah, I know we talked about this a lot when we signed him, and it's an exciting one, more so because of, like you said, the way that Sean is planning to use him, and you know, it just, again, it means that it feels like we're going to kick on a little bit more on that offensive side in terms of what the, you know, exciting football. Let's say what the fans want. Fans want wins, and sometimes you'll take them as ugly as they come, but you know, something nice about watching your team go out there and have a nice long drive and exciting players, some of them big players which we've let, you know, in recent years. That defense has shored up again, phenomenally, like we said, last season and a bit before then as well. But there was a while where we were getting undone. There's some big players, particularly against tight ends. Again, we mentioned this, you know, and those linebackers and such, and having somebody to match up against some of them bigger tight ends. But we've been undone by them, Mark, and it's nice that we're finally looking like we're turning that corner. We've gone through the O-line, we've gone through the quarterback. We know where we are with those. Like you said before, let's get them some weapons and some exciting ones like that. So, yeah,
You know,
brilliant.
what's exciting for me is, you know, we're down in that red zone, and you're thinking you're on 2nd and 4 in the red zone, and you've got lined up, you've got Bonix, quarterback, obviously. You could have Travion Henderson out the backfield. You know, so you pick up someone like him. You could have a Marion Hampton. Then you've got Evan Engram passing game. You know, 6'4", something like that. Cortland Sutton, 6'4". Devon Bailey, 6'3". Try and stop them. You know, loft the ball up. You know, one of them's going to win. You don't often have cornerbacks of that size to cover everyone. So you've got three over 6'3" there, and then it's just I don't know how you defend against that. And there's talks of maybe drafting a wide receiver in that early rounds. You could go T-Mac, you could go Emeka Ekbuka, you could go Matthew Golden. All have got decent size and just add that extra sort of weapon in that red zone. But to pull it back to sort of that tight end, Evan Engram, he's that mismatch that we've not had for ages.
Yeah.
He's got the speed, he's got the size, and he's going to be Bo Nix's best friend. I think they are going to have such chemistry, whether it is his first read and he sort of gets it out really quick to him for 7 or 8 yards and then a few yards after catch, or if it's just a 2-yard slant and he's sort of just gaining those yards and receptions and totaling up his yards, or if he is stretching the field and he's gaining 30, 40 yards on a deep ball. I can see Evan Engram doing it all, and hopefully we'll draft a sort of tight end later on in the draft and to sit behind him and learn his game from one of the best in the NFL at the moment.
Yeah. And you're right, Matt. And again, we're saying that exciting thing, but actually for me as well, if you've got a player like him who can just help you move the chains, like you said, those quick releases, 6, 7, 8 yards, but we're moving the chains, we're stretching, we're running the clock, and we've got control of the game for a while. Because again, we've gone into, Chiefs are perfect example of it, where they just, they've got control of that. They know exactly what that offense is doing. They can move up that field pretty much as quickly as they want. Or maybe it's not so much last year, where again they were in closer games, but the year before. If we can get into those games where it's on Sean's time and we're playing how we want to play because we've got the confidence we're going to stay on the field, it's exciting. And like you say, the room behind him, I think it's a varied room, but I think we both feel like there might be an addition through the draft. We've got Adam Troutman in there, and again, he's not a receiver.
As a number 2 tight end on the team, I think he's one of the sort of better tight end 2s in the league. Not a lot of teams have 2 top tier tight ends.
I mean, what you're going to get from him is he's going to help you, your block game. He's going to help there. Is he as much of a threat as a receiver? Is there somebody better in the draft who could come in and have that dual threat, or is there somebody, and this is the bit where could he find himself in a sort of camp competition? Potentially not. I'd expect him to make the roster, but I think if we bring somebody in, because you've got Nate Atkins on there as well. And
I think he's very exciting young talent. He's got the size and the speed. We haven't seen it enough from him yet. And he's had a pretty decent shot at it, I'd say.
Yeah. I think for me, Matt, he showed that little bit more variety in his game. So he was doing well in the block, but he snuck in with 3 touchdowns near the end of the season, I think, and we had him lined up as a fullback at times. But obviously we re-signed Burton, but there's a player that can come in and just help you out in a time of injury or something like that. So for me, I think he is probably more likely. Depending on what this battle looks like. I'm not saying we wouldn't run with those 3 at the moment, but we also have Lucas Krull sat there. You're not taking 5 tight ends on the roster. You're not. So somebody, if we do draft one, but it's all good competition. I think at this point you'd be happy with the room as it's sat for me. But
we've also got that young Thomas Yassin, he gets an international player slot, so he doesn't actually take up room on the roster. He's an exciting talent coming out of college last year. He could make a few plays. He could really shine in training camp and make those big plays that force him onto the roster. But I think we'll draft one pretty early in the draft this year. I don't think we'll go round 1 anymore.
No,
I did think that's where we were going. There was a lot of noise early on, but I think it's going to be sort of more round 2, round 3, probably round 3 at the earliest. I'd say now.
Yeah, I would. I'm not a betting man, or definitely not in the draft, but am I edging wide receiver round 1, running back round 2, and then taking it from there? That might be where I'm at. And again, it's a weird one because I don't think wide receiver is one of our pressing needs, which we'll come on to that in a minute. But a weapon of this caliber, when at pick 20, one of the weapons we could pick up.
I think that's the important thing. We keep saying this word and we keep saying weapon. And it's just surrounding our young quarterback whilst he's in the window, cost control, trying to surround him with as many weapons as we can get, give him the out, give him as much chance as we can to succeed and just go and show what he's made of, because he's certainly shown that he has the skills to go on and hopefully be that quarterback for us. So, yeah, I think you're right in the fact in the NFL draft. I think we'll go round one wide receiver. I think we'll go running back. Obviously, this depends how the board falls. There's talks of us going defense in round one as well, if one of the top tier defensive linemen are there, because we've got a few defensive guys on contract years this year. Obviously, we'll talk more about that next week. But yeah, and then I think tight end is. We're lucky that the draft position, deep positions are ones that we need. Wide receiver, tight end, running back, all pretty deep positions for us. So I think we'll find ourselves some exciting weapons to surround Bo Nix with. Is there anything else you sort of want to mention around tight end?
No, I think we're covered them. I think like you say, I think it'll be an interesting one, Mark. I think there's we either don't draft one and you're quite comfortable going in with that room, or we do, and there's an interesting battle where for somebody, and for me at the moment, from what I've seen, the top three we've said there. I mean, that room: Ingram, Troutman, and Adkins. Happy, and does Krull drop off the list for me potentially at the moment? But again, we're talking young players. There's room for growth and such. So
it's just a room for once. For once, we've got a tight end room that is providing some optimism. Not had that for a long time. So
let's get to ranking it then, mate. Where do you put this one then? Because again, it's a funny room, the tight end room in the AFC West for me.
Yeah.
The start with the Chiefs, Travis Kelce. You kind of know what you're gonna get, but is that happening?
Yeah.
Is that a little bit of decline? So, he wasn't always Patrick Mahomes' go-to guy last year. He showed glimpses of it towards the end of the season again, where when it mattered, and he kind of got the made some big plays. He was a little bit more consistent, but is he the weapon he has been?
Whilst he's still producing at a high enough level, you've still got to put that room as number one. He's the best tight end that's been in the NFL for a long time. You are right, he is on a dip. He is declining, and that's lovely to see as a Broncos fan. Yeah, I'd still put them as number one. They've got obviously got.
But if you're putting him at one,
Noah Gray's a very good young tight end as well. So I like that room for the Chiefs. Where would we slot ourselves in? You've got the absolute.
And this is the next thing. Yeah, for me that room there, Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, and Michael Mayer was one that was going to be the next big thing, but it's still a good player and is a depth player sat behind Brock Bowers. It's that room. I mean, the numbers that Brock Bowers put up last year was phenomenal, and
he's very good. It's arguably the one player I didn't want them to get last year.
Yeah,
and he fell right to them, and it looks like they're going to.
Get your next one,
this year he's going to drop to them as well. But he's an exciting young player. He's probably on track to be one of the best tight ends that I've ever. I know it's very early, but to have ever played in the NFL, he's got the skill set to do that.
So I think for me, mate, I think we'll look at the Chargers. I think they've got the minute Tyler Conklin, they've got Will Disley. That's probably the most underwhelming. I think
underwhelming but consistent.
Yes, both good players and such, but it's one of them. It's high, moderately high ceiling. I think the Chargers have got with those two players, but quite a low floor if they, and at the minute, with the way the Broncos roster is, I suppose if Ingram doesn't pan out, we're in the same boat. I think we're putting our eggs in this being a good player, athletic player coming in a Sean Payton offense, and I think that's what pushes that ceiling a little bit higher. So for me, I would nestle us in third, but with the ceiling to be competing with both, and there's a bit of fluctuation between 1 and 3. I think it depends what happens, but at the minute 3 with a high ceiling.
Yeah, so we're going Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers. You might have sold me to move the Raiders up to 1. Actually, they've got 2 very good tight ends there, haven't they?
Yeah, I think that if not already, I think in this next season that will probably be the cemented move. I think we'll see a little bit more of Travis Kelce, and again, I still think he'll put up numbers, and like you say, with no Gray sat behind and such, and you never know what they're going to do in the draft as well. But I think we'll probably see that switch, and Brock Bowers will just, he's not one I'm looking forward to playing against twice again this season.
No.
So
But let's hope from a Broncos point of view. I never like wishing injuries on players, but let's get not a minor injury. He could suffer from a cold when he plays the Broncos, something like
twice,
that. Altitude sickness when he comes to
yeah,
game, something like that. Yeah, let's
agreed.
move on to wide receiver. Some people are saying this is our biggest need. Some people are saying well, it's not a need at all. Where do you stand on that?
We've discussed it, Mark. I think I'm firmly in the middle. I think it's
You're
I
sitting
I
on the fence.
I am, but I expect us to add to it. That's the thing. So I agree that it is a need. I don't think it's a pressing need, but I will equally be happy if we're going round one and draft an absolute stud. But if we're picking one up later in the draft, and I expect us to at some point, if that's a round three, round four pick, whatever, I'd still be equally as happy because I think again we've discussed this. We're going into this draft where we have got the freedom to pick best player available, really, if we wanted to. But like you said, we've got Cortland Sutton, who is pushed him back into the wide receiver one room in that conversation because that connection with Bo Nix is brilliant. Marvin Mims for me had a slow start, but was that coaching? Was that the game plan rather than him as a player? Because we changed it up. We give him the ball in his hand. We let him run it at times. We unleashed his speed and Real, how many? I think did he second half of the season he had like 6 touchdowns or something and
Yeah, he had
put a
a
ball.
2 game stretch of getting 2 touchdowns in both,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he was just sort of unreal towards the end of the season, and
I think
he were using him as running back at some point.
yeah,
He was a bit of a I hate saying this word now because the Broncos have so overused it. He was a bit of our joker last year.
yeah.
Obviously, Evan Engram has taken that role now, hopefully moving forward. But I expect another jump from Mims this year, and to probably become our number 2 wide receiver, opposite Coleman Sutton.
Hopefully, and you're right. And I was just going to touch on one stat that I do remember that I saw when I was having a little bit dig about was never mind what he put up in numbers the second half of the season. It's what he didn't do the first half, and I think he touched the ball less than 10 times in um in the first half of the season, and then
It's
put up 6 touchdowns and
inexcusable, isn't it? As well, for he was probably getting that separation. He's an absolute got game changing speed. He shows that in the return game. He's got
and
good
again,
hands. He's an example. Obviously, just wasn't getting the chance to go and make those plays. I can't
and
remember him dropping any early on
no.
in the season.
So again, was it coaching? Was it the game plan, or was it early doors? Maybe it's a little bit of a Bornick safety blanket. He was going for the player he had the connection with because there's a confidence there, and it's unravelled a little bit and widened out as he's got his feet and foot in the door a little bit, and probably a mix of everything to be honest. But he, like you say, Marvin Mims, he had a brilliant second half, and yeah, I expect him to be pushing. We then
Yeah,
got Devon Villiers, who again, it bit of an unknown because he come in and like TB Streets. He was there. He was consistent. He was making those plays. Diamond and found a diamond there in the seventh round, which is great from the Broncos organization, isn't it? Fine, coming at the draft makes you wonder. You know, makes you happy when you've got a lot of picks, even if they are later round ones, because you know that they are doing well.
George
That
Payton
scouting.
has a history, doesn't he, of finding those sort of late round
Yeah,
gems. And I think he's hit on one most years. He's been in Denver. Like I said, Vele's come in, and I think particularly early on in the season, he was that chain mover. He was Bo Nix's best friend. And between the 2 rookie wide receivers in Troy Franklin and Devon Bailey, I think they had about 60 catches between them in the season.
yeah.
Uh, and as a pair of rookies, you can't really ask for more than that. You don't really want them getting more than that between them because you want Colin Sutton to be getting them, you want Marvin Mims to be getting them. But I think Devon Bailey was sort of the first half of the season, he was the better player, and I think Troy Franklin had the better second half of the season.
He made those big explosive plays, didn't he? But I think you're right. The bit we got with Villa was, he was averaging over like 10 yards per catch, and like you say, for a rookie quarterback and having somebody there who, as a seventh round draft pick is becoming that secure safety blanket where you can go, yeah, I'm going to throw it him. He's going to catch it. And we know it drops. And we're going to move the chains. It's massive, because you looked at that room going into last season. you know, it was thin, it was sparse because of what we'd seen in Mims a year before. Troy Franklin, untested at that point, coming in as a rookie. So now we're a year on. I'm firmly on that fence for that reason because of what we've seen, and I think we will draft one. But like I say, it's how early we go. Because you see, if you see Marvin Mims as your wide receiver too, Mark, that suddenly probably is not the answer, is it? If we draft one in round one, but that's a great competition there, isn't it? Where
Yeah,
you've got, depending on what position you draft on, in that wide receiver room. But the fact you've got Marvin Mims competing for wide receiver two, you've got Devon Valier probably there as your wide receiver three. Somebody's going to have to give somewhere, but it's a great competition and a headache to have, isn't it? Going into
yeah.
camp.
I am firmly in the camp that we are drafting someone like oh my god, I can't say his name, Emeka Egbuka. I think
Yeah,
he is the perfect wide receiver for Sean Payton to utilise. It's probably the one position on the offense that we need somewhere, other than running back, which we'll come on to in a second. But a slot receiver, someone who can get open, on them short slants, um, out fades, out routes towards the touchline. I think he excels in that game. He's a little bit like Jerry Jeudy without the speed. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy didn't work out in Denver, but didn't really have the quarterback play to give him the chance with us. And he showed what he could do with the Browns last year.
yeah, good season last year.
I think
Brilliant.
he's a good comp for Jerry Jeudy, someone obviously we know about. But I think that's where the Broncos will lean if they are going wide receiver in that first round, and I think he'd be a very good pick at number 20, and would sort of give the Broncos something we haven't really got. You've got Colton Sutton, who is the big freak receiver out on the outside. You can go make those 50-50 jump balls, 80-20, 90-10 balls, and he'll come down
Yeah,
with them most of the time. You've got Devon Bailey, who secure hands, doesn't drop many, moves the chains, good yards after the catch, reliability. You've got Troy Franklin, who is just pure speed. He's gonna haul in more than he will drop. I'm sure as he grows in the NFL, he's already got that connection with Bo Nix, so there's that. And then you've got Marvin Mims, who is just Mr. Gadget player, can do a bit of everything.
yeah,
Really started to show what he could do. So I'm hopeful that's where we'll go. It's where I'd like us to go now. I know I was part of the mock draft for Huddle UK, where I went Colson Loveland, but I've also been part of the mock draft for um, good wins, good teams win, great teams cover um, their draft, and I went Emeka Egbuka for them at number 20. So that's where I think we'll go.
yeah. Brill. So ranking Mark, then where we're putting this, because I think
Again,
again
it's
this is
a tricky one.
yeah,
I would put us at Chiefs. They've got Xavier Worthy, who had a really good season last year. They brought back Brown. They brought back.
yeah.
He's a legit wide receiver. So they've got two amazing sort of speedy players there. Um,
Rashi
maybe
Rice,
Rashi Rice, obviously, yeah, he was becoming an absolute weapon, and one I didn't fancy was up against. Um, three legit options there for the Chiefs. Still rank them above ours without my orange tinted glasses on.
I
Uh,
I think it's
we're very
uh,
similar.
maybe. I'm gonna be stay on that fence again. Maybe I think potentially because I don't see our wide receiver. I think that for me, there's probably one wide receiver room at the moment that I quite like, which is the Chargers wide receiver room.
Lad
I think that's
McConkey is going to be special in this league.
yeah,
He is
but
looking just. He looks like he's got everything. He was a one-man attack, wasn't he, for a while?
yeah,
Everything was going for him. I think he was coming out with like 10, 11 catches a game. I'm glad I had him in my fantasy team at one point. He was racking me up the points and keeping me in games when I was losing heavily.
yeah. But Mike Williams is still there. Quentin Johnson's still there. And it's strange because you're right. Lad McConkey's the player where you go, there is the one that's coming and made a thing. But we've got again, I think it's because we've been so used to seeing a Broncos offense where we've not been putting up the numbers. And last year we started to. Cortland had that connection, and I think we're so used to potentially not being in that conversation that we're maybe our orange tinted glasses probably aren't orange enough. I think on the wide receiver room for me, I think
Yeah.
potentially it is better than, especially if we had a weapon, but we're not looking at the moment. I think it's pretty good. I think it's better than the Raiders. Um,
I
the
would
Raiders.
probably rank us as number one. I would. I think we're up there. I think us, Chiefs, and Chargers are all very similar. We've all got sort of that one stud wide receiver, at least one. We're all pretty young in the wide receiver room.
Yeah,
We've all got exciting talents that could go on and become something. They could also flop and become nothing. But we've all got them. And then the Raiders is just the Raiders. I think the roster's quite weak this year, especially on that offensive side. But something that they could look to sort of improve in the draft. But yeah, I'd put us as number one or number two. I'm happy with
we're,
either.
we're in that mix now. I think I agree with you. I think it's better than it has been. I'm a lot more confident, as I've just said there, going into the draft. Get me a first rounder, and I'm happy. Get me a third rounder, and I'm happy. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? But I think we're there. But so yeah, right. So we're down to probably the other side of things at the moment, then, and this running back room to finish off.
the absolute one massive hole on the roster. And that's not saying anything against Julio McLaughlin and Audric Estime. I think they're both really good running backs. They're just not number one. They can't be your bell cow, can they?
No, and I think I had high hopes for Estimate because I love it when you see a running back who's sort of so stocky and well built and a powerhouse, and you think, yeah, that's somebody who's just gonna, like what we said before. We had Javonte come in and his angry runs. He was getting the angry run scepter every week because he was just plowing through players before that injury. You thought we were going to see the same with Audric Estime, and then pretty poor start. He was in a committee. He'd had a bit of an injury, but he had a couple of fumbles in there. And you suddenly you're wondering because in that running back game in the NFL, there's not a lot of forgiveness. It doesn't take a lot for you to go from protege coming out of college to somebody who's not built for the NFL, and it's a harsh reality, but it kind of it's how quick that narrative can turn for a running back. So
And I know you're not saying that he won't get there. He still could become our
yeah,
number one running back. He could have he could have worked really hard in the off season, have a fantastic training camp, and then come out as a number one ahead of Jaleel and whoever we draft. Whether it's one we draft, whether we bring in someone like J.K. Dobbins, as a veteran running back, he's still
yeah.
out there. I could see that happening after the draft, but we'll
I mean,
see. Like I said before, I just don't want to go in and expect the Broncos to have a running back by committee. I want
yeah,
us to have that clear 1 and 2 running back. Um, and just
I
keep
agree.
the same
I
one
agree.
marched out every play if it's working, obviously.
Yeah. No, I mean it showed. I think Javonte Williams getting around 500 yards as a leading rusher was like one of the worst in the NFL. As a team's leading rusher, and again that's fine if you've got two players racking up 1,000 yards and four doing 500, but there wasn't that consistency. Like you say, I think the O line was creating the gaps and such, but the run game never really got going. And is that because we didn't know what we wanted to do with it? But I
What
think for
frustrated
me,
you was the amount of times that we ran on first down and you'd get a yard or you'd lose yards, and then you run in on second down, and again you get 1 or 2 yards, and suddenly you're at 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, and you're thinking, well, now we have to pass it.
yeah,
It's just easy for a defense to read. I'd like us to be getting 5, 6 yards on that first down. It just really opens up the playbook, and we'll see much more dynamic offense. Sean Payton that's his bread and butter, isn't it? Open up that playbook as early as you
yeah,
can. Defenses don't know how to stop it.
exactly. And again, like you say, we've lost our running back one, Martin, and that's what we're in the market for. And I'd expect, like you say, we've got Julian McLaughlin on the roster, we've got Audric Estime on the roster, and again, in Estime's defense, I think when he
So
was being
listen,
used again,
I've just noticed I am turning into darkness here. I'm going to turn the
Yeah,
lights on. You're going to not be able to see me in a second.
get 10 pence in the leggy meter, mate. The fans need to see your face.
Whoa, look at
But
that.
there we go. No,
That's a
turn it back
great
off.
definition. Look at that.
But yeah, I think what went against Estime as well when he come back, he'd had that slow start, couple of fumbles and injury. He was then being used in sort of, some of these games as we're heading into the playoffs and we're sneaking in front. He was used as sort of in short yardage situations, or he's used for like clock management. So his stats are never going to be as inflated as Javonte's were, who was there for your big players and such. So I'd expect to see him make that jump. If Javonte is gone, I expect him. He'll see it a little bit more. We've got Jaleel there as a change of pace back, although his yards per carry wasn't brilliant. But again, maybe he's a little bit more consistency, a little bit less chopping and changing, less committee. When he does come on, do we see a little bit more?
I think you'd see a lot more from him if we had a legit run game, a legit number
Yeah,
one running back. Actually making that change of pace back, because he was
yeah,
sometimes starting running back. Uh, so he's not the change of pace. That's what he is. That should be his bread and butter. He should be able to come on, run those sweeps, do the screens, find those holes and really hit the floor and get motor past some of those linebackers within 1-2 seconds. That's his game. I don't think he got the chance massively to do that last year.
no,
So yeah, I think it's the one position that we will target very early in the draft. Like I say, if Hampton is there, I think he will be very hard to turn down at 20. I don't think he will be there now.
no.
But
And again, it comes to that securities, and then, like you say, the understanding of the picture and the team's needs, and there'll be whispers, there'll be chats, and they'll know kind of idea in them first couple of rounds really who's going where. And it's could they get Henderson or somebody similar in there. But again, if all goes to pot and both are swept away, you could be looking around free picking, still picking up somebody who could come in and make that difference in that room, because it's not there. It's there's decent players, there's some building blocks there and some depth players, but um, it's open for anybody to come in and assert themselves as that lead, I think, and that's kind of where we are. And there's a couple of players there. We've got Tyler Beatty and Blake Watson, and it's there's going to be another. They are players who haven't had the opportunities to show a lot, but have
they'll get a
have
shot.
a
They'll get
time.
a shot in training camp to sneak onto that back end of the roster. They're probably going to have to play special teams and excel at that as well to really give it a
Yeah,
good shot.
but unless we
You
pick
don't
up
want to
two in
go
the
season, do you, with one of them as your main guy?
no, but I think unless we pick up two in the draft, which is not off the cards, but unlikely potentially. One of those is probably making that roster straight away. So there is a camp battle regardless. I think
You
if you
see,
take
I think the
one,
way we will go is pick up a veteran like J.K. Dobbins, someone like that, knows the NFL, knows how his game, and pick up an early round draft pick. And I think
yeah,
that would mean Beatty, Watson, potentially Estime or McLaughlin are surplus to requirements there really,
yeah,
and that's just the NFL. It's a cruel business at times.
it is
You can go
definitely.
from zero one year to zero the next very very quickly. But yeah, again, it's a room that it's going to be changed from this year, and that's an exciting thing. It's the weakest room on the roster, so it needs changing. And we all know that running backs can win you Super Bowls. Look at the effect Saquon did. I know he's a freak, but the effect of Saquon on the Eagles this year was just incredible.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a difficult one to rank this because, well, it's not, because I think at the minute we're fourth. But again, the Raiders, they need to be coming in and doing something. I think the Chiefs, they've got Pacheco, and I think have they brought Hunt back again.
Yeah,
The Chargers, who they got, they've got. Did they sign? What's he called from Najee Harris?
exciting. What a fantastic deal that is for the
Yeah,
Chargers. I think I would rank them as arguably number one. I think Najee Harris is going to be. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I think every year since he's come into the NFL.
yeah,
Put him in a running scheme. Harbaugh loves running that ball. I think he could have monster numbers this year and will be that
yeah. So
frustrating running back against the Broncos twice.
okay,
Like
just for a change.
yeah, we seem to have this against every one of these teams of running backs
Yeah,
go off against us every year. So
Yep.
yeah, I'd rank us fourth. I'd put the Chargers top, Chiefs second,
Yeah.
Raiders third.
I mean, they've only got really Mostert, who they've brought in. They've got Zamir White, I think, sat somewhere on there as well.
That just
But
shows how bad our room is. I think that we are, we're very similar to the Raiders in the room, but you won't take either of our running back rooms. We've got to be
no,
right near the bottom, 30, 31, 32 in the NFL.
yeah. But like you say, if we brought in, say, Henderson and somebody like Dobbins as well, and they're even on the understanding that they're going to potentially take Janty in the first, which obviously is a game changer. There's still a conversation about the room overall, and the strength of it. Then is it stronger than the Raiders? So, yeah, because I feel that if the stud drops, what have they got, and at what point what you sat on? But yeah, it needs something this off season drastically, and that's the one position where it could easily be a first round pick, but like you say, the likelihood it's not going to be with what will be available on the board and what value we can get in the second round. I know we've talked that to death on previous episodes, but
and we will do again just before the draft.
Yeah, see if it's changed.
Yeah,
but at the minute, I think we're just cementing that pick, aren't we? Or so, early pick.
Just to round up, then we're nearing an hour on this, which is an amazing chat we've had, amazing discussion around the offense. If we had to rank the offenses as a whole in the AFC West, where would you put us? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm just
excited about where would you sort of rank us?
I think, and this isn't, again, my orange tinted glasses are on now. I think there could be. I think it's the closest it'll have been for a while, and I think to some degree that includes the Raiders still. I think you say they've brought in a bit of consistency at quarterback. They'll they've got some weapons in terms of Brock Bowers, and they could be bringing in Janty for that run game. I love our QB and I love that O line, and we are starting to put the weapons around it. So I cannot see why we're not in that conversation to be getting a few more wins on the board through the regular season and competing with the likes of the Chiefs and the Chargers at the top.
See what you're doing there? You're failing to commit to a number.
1.
Oh, you've gone 1. Okay.
1. But joint 1. Asterisk.
Okay, with 3 other teams.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think if I put it, I would kind of write off the Chiefs, but I want to. That's kind of where I'm at. Are they going to be? And this is just offensively. This is where we're looking at it.
Yeah.
I think I would put us potentially 1 with the Chargers, and the Chiefs are sat in a second position, and Raiders nestling underneath on the offensive side of the ball. And we could even clear the Chargers if that run game gets addressed in the draft. I think we're looking at a pretty complete offensive side of the ball. If we round 1 and 2 is a wide receiver and a running back for me, Mark, I think we're going that season.
Very happy, won't we?
Yeah.
No, I think I agree with you. We'll take our orange tinted glasses off soon, I'm sure. But it's nice to have this
week 1.
Yeah, week 1 for sure. But yeah, it's been, like I said before, it's been a fantastic chat tonight. It's always good to just chat Broncos with you, Kieran. And I already look forward to next week where we'll flip it totally. We'll go back onto the defensive side, which I'm sure will be a fantastic chat as well. We know what we stand, where we stand with the defense, but have we improved it? Is there anywhere where we can further improve it? But yeah, so get your research done, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week on that. And as always, feel free to follow us on our socials. We're on Twitter at BroncosEUR. We're on Facebook. We've got the Facebook page and the group. If you just search Broncos Europe, you'll find us. And we're on YouTube at Broncos Europe as well. So yeah, tune in next week, and we'll see you soon. Sorted.
Cool.